was released in 2014. Let's get this party started. The film begins. We come across a man named Banyan Cho. He is a successful person who has a prestigious reputation in a school where he teaches students. He talked about ageism and asked the students for their feedback. However, the majority of the students made strange remarks about their grandparents, prompting the man to ask if they would remain young forever. Then a student told him that when she reaches the age of 30, she will end her life. Omal soon had the idea of killing herself at the age of 30, but then her husband died in a cold snap in Germany, leaving her to care for her young, tender son who was always sick. The elderly lady starts bragging about her son to a male friend. Mr. Park, she constantly boasted about her son, who is wealthy and lives a good life. Oh, Bach, an elderly lady, interrupted their conversation and lovingly expressed her affection for Mr. Park. However, when the woman mispronounced coffee, American, this macho man became envious. The mall soon made fun of her, and everyone in the cafe made fun of her. Later, a fight broke out between them, and as had always happened while attempting to separate them, Mr. Park ended up with a bleeding nose, and his daughter was furious when she saw this, unable to see her friend bleeding. Omal quickly went over to his house to give him some peach fruit, not realizing he was allergic to them until she angrily left the house. Mr. Park followed the woman and later rode his bike to her house. Hansen, a music producer, has been looking for a quality music brand that he can produce, but has been disappointed by everyone who has demonstrated their talent. Omal soon moves in with her son's family, but she frequently complains about his wife's cooking. Even when the woman tries to tell her son that he should concentrate on his studies rather than music, Omar quickly told her to leave her grandson alone, and she supports his ambition to become a musician, because despite her youth, she aspires to be a top singer. Later, Ajaz's health deteriorates, and when she tries to see her husband off to work, Omar appears scolding her once more, and because of her mother-in-law's constant complaining, the woman finds it difficult to like her. Bon Jihad Omar. Soon after, grandson went to play at a bar, as he always did. But their group was not popular, nor was it on the verge of becoming popular. When Omar returned home one day, she noticed that the house was silent. As she approached her daughter in the law room, she noticed broken glass on the table. She later dashed to the hospital after learning that the woman had collapsed. Fortunately for the woman, she did not perish. But the first words she spoke out were "mother," and Omar soon realized she wanted to talk to him. Her son clarified, however, that she wishes for her to leave due to age's condition. The family then considered placing Omar in a nursing home, but her grandson refused. Omal, who had secretly heard them, quickly left her hideout and walked away. Unfortunately, when they broke the news to her, she acted calmly and instead fed her son and grandchildren well before telling her son to take good care of his wife. But she was only pretending to be strong at the restaurant. She couldn't stop herself from thinking deeply, even when a woman claiming to know her showed up to meet her. The woman's name is Obuk, and she attempted to create a mall. She quickly recalls stealing her mother's meal recipes before fleeing to create her own, but Mal quickly pretended she didn't remember. As a result, the woman dragged her and they started fighting. Mal was quickly thrown to the ground in front of onlookers, and the woman continued to beat her. After a while, the Mal soon sat down and confirmed everything the woman had said. "You can despise or despise me however you want," she said. As a single parent with a sick child, she had no choice but to do everything they could to survive. And now he's a good man. And she burst into tears. She kept thinking late at night, planning to board a bus while sobbing. When her grandson called, she agreed to treat him and his friends to dinner. So she went to find him. But on the way, she noticed a studio that was perpetually young. So she went in to take pictures with the intention of having a beautiful picture to hang for her if she died. But something magical happened after I took the photograph. What do you think? She transformed into her younger self, and the guys on the bus attempted to hit on her. She let out how young she looked when she saw her picture in a boy's glass and pulled her cheeks constantly. So, looking at her image through the bus won't be a figment of her imagination. She couldn't believe how young she was, so she dashed to a shopping mall and started asking people how old she looked after the transformation. When her grandson phoned, she was secretly watching him and didn't answer the phone. She dashed back to the studio, but it was no longer there. Instead, there was a restaurant present. She couldn't go back to her family, who had started looking for her the day after she went missing. The next morning at the hotel where she had stayed the night before, everyone was envious of her stature as she continued to do flexible exercises. When she saw an old man's body, she realized how much grace she has been given to begin living her life fully. She changed her hairstyle and purchased young and attractive dresses. She was very content with her way of life. She then went to see her old friend Mr. Park and told him she wanted to rent an apartment. As a result, a vacant apartment was rented to her. She is well aware that her name is Odu Ray, and she fled when Park attempted to question her further. When she saw her son in the street, she would hide her face and flee. She continued her habit as an elderly woman and attended a singing function for only the elderly. She blew everyone away with her dazzling voice when it was her turn to sing. Even Handsome, who can be heard from afar, was forced to enter the rain to see who was singing at night. Her grandson, who had heard her singing, came over to Mr. Park's house to have a brief conversation with her at a bar. He asked her if she would be the team's lead vocalist, and she agreed to start. When she heard how they sang, she stopped the band. She made them realize that music should connect to a person's soul rather than just serve as a loud piece with wasted effort. So they started playing to the song she wrote, and while playing on the street later on, people start to recognize and appreciate the band. They start to make a lot of money. People at the bar continue to applaud the band after they performed with the transformed doll, soon singing and dancing to a very interesting song with a lovely voice. One day, someone happened to notice her as she was correcting a woman about her child, and when they got out of the car, he secretly followed her when she noticed someone was following her. She dashed into hiding and threw a nice fish at some people who were following her. He attempted to speak with her, but things did not go well, and she ended up drawing the attention of some police officers, resulting in the young man's arrest. The next day, she went to her house using the exercise of being in the R band, and the family welcomed her warmly. She was able to trick the boy into letting her into her room. When she did, she secretly went to retrieve the credit card she had hidden. Later, she ate with the family and continued her old behavior. During the meal, she corrected the woman and happened to greet her son the way she had always done when he returned, but quickly pretended to have a stomachache when she noticed they were looking at her. Surprisingly, Sung-woo obtained control of the band. Then he tells them about himself and how he wants to incorporate them into his music band. He fully supported their practice and everything they would require, despite the fact that his secretary was opposed to the idea, and the group happily jumped in circles with Do-ri patting their backs like children. Meanwhile, Park mistook Do-ri for a murderer, but she was able to beat up the old man and restrain him. Then she told him to pay close attention to her face. It took some time before the man recognized her, and she explained everything that had happened. She forced him to tell her son that they shouldn't be concerned about her because she is healthy, while she eavesdropped on their conversation as she was about to leave. Van Hollen also felt his mother's presence when he noticed his shoes were neatly cleaned. Mr. Park had always admired her, so he began to exercise regularly and experimented with dressing young so that he could be a good match for Do, who was shocked at the sight of his attire when she saw him and he took her to a big competition. And once again, the group wowed the audience with their beautiful performance as well as Dewey's heartfelt music, which she composed based on her life story of her husband leaving for Germany while she was pregnant. Being a single mother, caring for her child, and trying to provide for it was an emotional performance that everyone praised as tears streamed down her face. Mr. Park's daughter Vandana, who suspected Deary of having an intimate relationship with her father, kicked her out of the house a few days later, and this irritated Mr. Park. He intended to avenge his daughter, but Doris stopped him and later left the house. So he went to inform Barnhill Chow that his mother was his duty. But as luck would have it, the man suspected Mr. Park was developing amnesia. It began to rain while Do-ri was outside the house with her luggage, but some who later came to her aid. At night, Van Halen attempted to confirm what M.R. Park had said by looking through his mother's childhood photos. Then he realized it had all been his mother all along. On the day of the national competition, the band attempted to arrive early, but band Ji-hae was delayed due to traffic. So he paid for a bicycle he saw and drove dangerously to the event. Unfortunately, while riding, he was hit by a passing truck and knocked unconscious. It was their band's turn to perform at the event, and due to the Jihad accident, Song, who advised them not to perset any longer but was adamant. She stated that they should win the Jihad competition, so they took the stage, performed beautifully, and received a standing ovation from the audience. Dory dashed over to the hospital after the presentation and volunteered to give her blood, because she was the only match. But Hanshaw recognized her as his mother. He told her while crying that she shouldn't make sacrifices anymore, because if she did, she would revert to her old form. But she disagreed and made him understand that she has no regrets in her life. Months later, she was back to her old self, and the entire family kept hearing Jazz, who was playing on live shows when she nagged her daughter-in-law. They both left together. Lovely, because the woman realized it was her way of indirectly expressing her concern. Mr. Park later returned to the studio and had his picture taken. He went to pick Mal soon in his young form, and she gasped at his form, but kept complaining that he should transfer blood so he could return to his old self. The conclusion. What are your thoughts on this video? Please leave a comment and subscribe to this channel for more interesting movie updates.